everyone. Welcome to a Behind the Bench webinar. My name is John DeBenedictis. I'm the Executive Director of the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada. We've been putting on these webinars for it's our third season right now. And we've had a whole host of coaches from all over the world. And we hope to continue these and build some sort of history for Canada. Today, we're continuing our series of remembering Canada's national teams. And this time we're looking at the Benito Floro era. Benito's not here, but we have his son who was assistant coach and also coach of one of the other national teams, as well as David Edgar, who played on the national team. Issey Farran also played. We're waiting for Kenny Stamatopoulos. Did I say that right? And Tosan Ricketts won't be available. Now, hosting the session will be a veteran sports broadcaster, Alf de Blasis, who's called many of the CPL games. He's been with Omni Television and Tele Latino for years, and he was the first actually to broadcast or play-by-play man for a National Hockey League game in Italian. Holds the record for that. So he's been around a long time. Alf, thank you very much for hosting this, and it's yours.
Thank you so much, John. It's a real pleasure for me to be hosting this webinar today on behalf of the NSCAC, and I'm pleased to welcome the three men that will be with us, and hopefully a fourth gentleman who should come along a little bit later on. They all either coached or played under Benito Floro on our Canadian national team from 2013 to 2016. So let's begin with Antonio Floro, of course, Benito's son, who joined the program with his father to serve as an assistant coach for the senior national team. And he also managed Canada's under-23 team during that spell. He was also the head coach of the Pan American Games, the Canadian representative at the Pan Am Games that were played right here in Toronto. So welcome, Antonio. You're joining us from Valencia, Spain. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you, Al.
Next, we'll go from the back out. Is a former national team defender and midfielder who won 42 senior caps for Canada, scored 4 goals and added 3 assists, and he played the majority of his club football in England with the likes of Newcastle United and Sheffield United, Burnley and Birmingham City before returning to North America with brief stops in Vancouver and Ottawa. But before his retirement, he became a 2-time Canadian Premier League champion with Forge FC, where he's now an assistant coach, David Edgar. Hey, David.
Hey, how are you? Thanks, Al.
Good. Thanks for joining us too. And next, he's a former national team forward who won 38 caps for Canada over a span of 10 years, scoring once. His club football took him all across the world, from Singapore to Denmark to Australia and parts in between. He's had spells in MLS with both Toronto FC and Montreal Impact, and he also joined Pacific FC for their inaugural season in the Canadian Premier League. He's still playing at age 38 at a club called Tárrega. Is that correct, Issey, in Spain?
He's no, that was last year.
Oh, that was last year. Okay, so you moved on. So Antonio, you were right.
Yeah.
Issey's moved on.
Yeah, it's called Cubellas. It's a Catalan league.
Perfect.
Technically 6th division, I think it is.
Great. Well, you're calling from Barcelona, Spain, and of course he is Issey Nakajima Farran. So thank you all for joining me today. We are waiting for Kenny Stamatopoulos, the goalkeeper from the better part of those 3 years under Benito Floro. He is currently traveling with his club team, AIK, in Sweden. So hopefully he will join us during the course of the next hour. And during the hour, we'll reminisce about some of the experiences these men had coaching or playing for Canada and for Benito Floro specifically. You can interact with my guests anytime during this event. If you'd like to ask a question or leave a comment, simply type it in the chat box and we'll try to get to it in the next 60 minutes. So the Benito Floro hiring kind of marked a bit of a departure for Canada Soccer, who had entrusted only Canadian coaches with the manager's job for almost a decade, since Holger Osiek left the post in 2003. So, Antonio, maybe we can start there. When the opportunity was offered to your father, what appealed most to him when he chose to accept the position as the manager of the Canadian national team?
Oh, wow. I remember the day he called me that he got a call from an agent from Canada, who was another friend of another agent who was working in Spain. And yeah, they asked my dad if he would like to coach Canada. For him, was the first time he coached a national team. So he, in that moment, had another offer to go for another big club in Africa when he was before. But we were in having dinner, discussing the what to do. And I said, Dad, you coach many teams, but Canada is a national team. And it's a beautiful country. We've never been there, but we were in US. But I mean, I think it's better option if you go to Canada. Even the salary was lower, right? But I thought that for my dad was better opportunity. Will be more exciting the experience in Canada, and why not try to fight for the World Cup? In a couple of days we make a report about the team, and we decide to go. I mean, we decide to say yes to those agents, and after they talk to the Canadian Soccer Association, and they call us to go there to have a meeting in person, and that happened.
And so your father took over through the latter part of 2013. So in September, there was a first camp in Spain.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask both yourself and the players what that first camp was like. And I know I believe you were all selected, and you played 2 friendlies during that time. So maybe give us a sense of what you recall about that very first camp and meeting Benito and Antonio and the staff, and what stood out for each of you about the new coaching staff, the new technical staff, and the new approach to the Canadian national program.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it was new. It was new for everyone. It was fresh. There was a lot of bodies that came into that first camp.
Right.
So
I think there were over 30 players, right, Dave?
Yeah.
3 teams.
Yeah. So that was it was different. It was a different sort of environment that we were used to. But it felt like we were going to be onto something consistent. I think that was the outlook that the guys were left with, and it was a good first step in what was to come. So, but yeah, I remember it was good. It was a good environment. I remember we had to. I'm not sure about the baked apple at 6 o'clock in the morning. Was it, Antonio? We have the first camp, but
too early. Yeah, I don't remember the time. But it was
baked apple and an orange juice, and but it was but no, it was.
Was
fun.
Because it was too hot. It was
baked apple and orange juice. That was the breakfast.
Yeah, that was our. It was our free. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, now I remember.
Director of practice.
Yeah.
But
no, it was new.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, just the whole thing of because the guy has no filter. So I think that was a real nice kind of change, having that kind of vulgar kind of coaching style towards the players. And yeah, he was very vulgar, in Spanish, not so much in English. And I really liked it. I really liked that kind of, I don't know, that is very Spanish. That's a very Spanish kind of character. So I thought it was really nice. I really liked it. Now that you mentioned about the apple, I remember how excruciating that was in the morning. I completely forgot about that. But I still remember he called me into, I think, Istanbul just before that camp to meet Benito and go see Atiba's game and Milan, who was both playing in Turkey at the time. I think there was maybe Ian Hume as well. I think, did he fly in at that time? But he had like 3 or 4 guys who were kind of in Europe at that time, kind of get together and have a talk with Benito, and I was just kind of happy to be in that circle. That he thought I was going to play a big role in that first whatever year. So yeah, I mean, as a player, once you get that sort of trust from the get-go, it was just like, how can you dislike the coach that kind of likes certain aspects to your game? So for me, it was a nice start.
Yeah, I think that actually speaks volumes about the type of man manager he was. That because he actually, I think you were there, Antonio. You came to England. I went and met him, and we watched Ian Hume play for Preston North End at the time. So we went to see, and I thought to myself, it showed interest in the fact and what we were doing in our lives and at our clubs and things like that, and they knew what we were doing, and I thought it was a very good management move for sure, and something that sat very, very well with me.
Yeah,
Did he go? Sorry, did you guys go anywhere else?
No, I remember that we went to the Gold Cup in July before the first camp. We went to the Gold Cup. You played you play in Denver, you play in Los Angeles, and I don't remember the other city. So we met some of the players, some of the staff in that moment, the equipment guy, Mike Moreto, and everyone. And after in August, I was in Spain working with scouting the players and everything. And Benito was the one who was traveling around Europe to talk with the players individually. But I don't remember. I remember he went to England. I remember he went to Turkey, probably, yeah. But I don't remember other places. Probably Germany, because Jules was there in Germany, probably in that moment. But I was not traveling. It was Benito only.
Yeah.
So let's move on then from that initial training camp. And by the way, a question has already come in. I'll get to it in a little bit of time, because it is an interesting question from Ariane. So if you're watching, please stay tuned, and we encourage everyone to type in their questions either in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm monitoring both of them. But you played quite a few friendlies over the next year, mostly against European opponents. You had some camps, I think, in Austria, in England, I believe, over the course of that year, but you didn't record your first win until almost a year later, when you beat Jamaica in Toronto. And David, you scored in that game. You scored a worldie, because I pulled it out a couple of days ago and watched it to get a sense of that game. You hit a shot from about 30 yards out. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
sure
I do remember that. I bring that one up quite often when I'm coaching now. But I'll be honest with you. It's a good thing you brought that up and the podcast, on this podcast, because it was a touch of Benito's brilliance, because he actually spotted that, and I'm sure through the help of Antonio there, but he spotted that, and we spoke about it previous to the game, how I would just come up late and Patrice Bernier would find me with that longer pass. And luckily I connected with it, because I liked just practicing my volleys and my shots all the time. And I think Benito and Antonio saw that, and they gave me a chance, and I ended up getting on target. So it was, like I say, it was a good coaching moment for sure.
And what was the sense around the team? Because you had gone that entire year without winning a match. I guess it was really sort of a feeling out process and getting to know the coaching staff, and the coaching staff getting to know the players. And although you were competitive in a lot of games, that really was sort of the breakout for the team and playing at home, because I think that was the first game you had played at home in the better part of a year and a half, right?
Yeah. I mean, the first year, as we knew that all the matches were not official matches, our main goal was to build a team, right? I mean, you want to win the matches, but it wasn't the most important thing. The most important is to create a a squad of 30, 40 players. The strongest one, because we had the feeling that the team came from a bad moment, you know, the last year with the World Cup and Honduras match, they lost A1 or A0, A1, I remember. We felt that the team was down, so we had to build a team with the strongest players. So we were proving many young players because we find that we have like a lack of good generation between 22, 26 years. So for us, the best players were older than 27 or yeah, more or less. So we're proving a lot of youth players. Like I don't have the number, but probably in total more than 40 or 50 younger than 23 or 22 in total. So trying to find a good player, no, a potential player, because Canada is big country, but in that moment the soccer is not like today. You know, there were not scouting platforms like today we have. So yeah, we're trying a lot of young players, and we rotate many lineups. We're trying to find the best. So I think that was the reason we had no chance to win a game clearly in the first year. We're making a lot of proofs.
Right, and you finished out 2014 with a game against Colombia
In New York.
In New York, and really, I think it was the only loss. I think the team suffered that entire year. So by the end of that year, 2014, and going into 2015, when World Cup qualifying was to begin, did you feel, guys, that you were kind of starting to find your comfort level with Benito's tactics and style of play, and just feeling comfortable within the group?
Yeah, I think for sure that we focused a lot. I was talking to Antonio recently about this. We reconnected because I remember we used to focus so much on throw-ins, and Benito would go through, and Antonio, all these videos of all like 75% of the World Cup goals came like 3 passes before the actual goal came from a throw-in. So he emphasized so much on the throw-ins, and I still remember having 6 different signals for a throw-in. And I mean, the game leading up to Colombia, the whole week that we were together, we were only doing set plays, but set plays were mainly throw-ins. And how that was, and that really struck me because, you know, in every game and so many countries that I played at, throw-ins was just like get the ball back and play. And that was really the attitude towards it, until you guys brought this up about, no, throw-ins is, you know, we're going to set it up so the second or the third pass is an assist. And while, I don't know, we didn't really pull it off because the last pass quite wasn't there, but you can see, especially he said that Colombia was only going to beat us by a goal if we were sleeping straight after the set play, giving a foul away, that we have to be switched on. And it happened exactly like that because James just took a quick free kick, got turned and just smashed the top corner. And though it was that moment where we all looked at the referee to say something, and James did exactly what Benito said he would. And everything else, I mean, we were pretty solid at the back. They didn't have too many chances, and Tosca should have gone a penalty in the first 2 minutes. But yeah, I mean, I thought you guys were spot on that game, and the amount of effort that went into the throw-ins. I still think how crazy it was that I've never taken it that seriously. And now I'm asking Antonio to help my 6th division club to take on throw-ins. So I'm still waiting for that email.
For free.
Was that a big part of the preparation, Antonio, in terms of preparing the team for specific matches, throw-ins, set pieces, dead ball situations? Was that a major part of your preparation?
Yeah, obvious first, because in soccer, I think more and more the matches can be decided because a set piece, right? Today, the teams are defending really well when the ball in play. It's more difficult to have a chance from attack. So if you prepare well the set piece, even if the other team is better than you or higher level, the set piece can make the match more even, right? So we can make danger. We score many goals, and we had many chances from set pieces, from corners, and not from throw-ins really, but we create some chances also. And yeah, main of the part of the training for sure. Yeah. Also, Benito is he was always a specialist. He was well known because the set pieces here in Spain. So we find that one of the strongest things we can make in the team was working for the set pieces, right? And as Issey said, Colombia, we were defending really well with the ball in play, but off the ball also. And only because in the last 10 minutes we were like off for 2 seconds. They play quick the foul, and James strike from 30 meters. And also Milan was close. I think Milan touched the ball, but I mean, for us, as I told you before, the score wasn't the main important thing. I mean, it's better if we did the things correctly and you lost 1-0 than if you played really bad and after you tied in that moment.
Yeah, I think we were definitely pretty proud of after that game. You know, keeping it. I mean, the whole stadium, and it wasn't New York. I think it was Seattle, because it's still one of my memorable games at that stadium. So I remember it was being in. Wasn't it Seattle? Wait,
No, it was New York. It was Red Bull.
New York.
Okay, so I'll just shut up then. So it wasn't Seattle.
You're thinking of another game.
You play in
Okay, that was
Seattle the World
Brazil.
Cup. The
Yeah, no,
World
that
Cup.
was Brazil.
You play in Seattle.
Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because
Okay,
they gave a
so-
penalty away.
Yeah, yeah.
I think,
All right, so
Alf, it just kind of, it speaks, it's not only the set pieces, it speaks for what we did after that in terms of attacking, but defensively. I don't think we as a team conceded a goal from a set piece.
No, yeah, you're right.
Right.
Yeah, and to us, it was a different way to defend. I don't know if you recall the way that we defended corners or wide free kicks. It was a very deep 2 blocks of 4, and we would defend that way. And even to myself and me and Benito, we clashed many times about it. I would speak to Antonio. I was like, I'm not sure. I don't know. But it worked. We never conceded. And that was the way I think we went the longest the national team's gone. I'm not sure, probably been broken now, but without conceding a goal in open play as well. We went a couple games with a solid back unit. So I think it just, in that first year, was coming out of that spell, was the construction of just trying to get that evolution of just getting our framework of defensive and then figuring out the kinks, right? I think we did that in that first year. And then I think the Colombia game was a great way to finish it all. And then it happened that way, that we lose on a free kick, but it was brilliant. Brilliant experience.
I think the only goal we conceded from set pieces was in
Mexico Gold Cup too. I think they scored from a corner.
Yeah, but before we play in Czech Republic.
Yeah,
and they send the ball from the center. They send the ball to one of the posts behind Marcel.
And back across. Yeah,
and we review before and said, be careful because they do this set piece, and that was the only one. Yeah.
It always works like that, huh?
Yeah, I remember that we heard some people talking bad about why they defend that deep. Man, say, man, the statistics defends our system, and we believe that it's better if we don't give the space behind, and we attack the ball and clear. And it works at least in Canada and other teams. It works.
Yeah, and I noticed. I think 2-3 years ago in the Premier League, Leicester City were doing it. I think Claudio Ranieri had them doing it.
And also Real Madrid is defended that way, and is the team in Spain who is conceding less goals from the free kicks.
So.
I mean, in soccer, everything works, right? But statistically, you have more probability or not with the positioning. But at the end, makes sense, right? If you are marking man to man, you have to choose if you want to watch the ball or you want to chase the player, right? Both. Yeah. Sometimes it's impossible. So at least you have to have 4 or 5 players only watching the ball in zona positioning and ready to clear.
Right. I wanted to just move on to 2015 because that really brought kind of the first series of competitive games with the World Cup qualifying. The Gold Cup was that year as well. You had a couple of early camps. I remember one in Florida in particular where you played Iceland twice, and you also played a couple more friendlies in the March camp. But I wanted to move right to the June dates and the opening World Cup qualifying campaign for Russia against Dominica, where you played home and away. This was the opening round for Canada, who were actually moved into the second round on a bye, I suspect. So Dominica was your first opponent, and you actually won the tie 6-0 on aggregate. I think it was 4-0 at home and 2-0 away, or I'm not sure, but I think that's how the scoring was. Once once you came into that 2-game series, what was the feeling around the team going into that 2-game set with Dominica? I mean, I imagine you had some confidence given the results from the previous camp in March, where you beat a couple of Caribbean and Central American countries. So you must have been going in with quite a bit of confidence. And had you seen much of the opponent of Dominica, Antonio, and what did you know about them, and how did you prepare for them?
We had not too many videos from Dominica, just a few. But our worry more than the team, because already know that we were a better team than them, right? But the worry is the travel, the field, you know, the weather. We have another worries more than the team in that moment. But still, you cannot relax, right? Because all the teams, they have probably one special player who can make some difference in one moment. But we play Dominica, and after we play Belize.
Belize, yeah.
Yeah, right. Dominica was easier. And also we play in the second match with many youth players, many young players. But Belize was dangerous. They have 3 or 4 players. Eddie can talk. It's fast players, you know. And then you are always like, oh, we cannot have a stay because the field is bad. The grass was tall and the humidity, many things that affect the player, you know. And we are from Canada, you know. It's completely different weather. And I was scared more about that than the teams.
I think it must have been a shock for Antonio and Benito as well, because Issey, you know, we can talk about it as much as you want, but until you're down there and you're in an environment and you're playing on that field in that heat with that ball, and then it's bouncing, it's just, you can't explain it. And you're looking around at players who, you know, on your team have got extreme amounts of quality, and for some reason it's not happening because of everything. It's a difficult place to be, right? And that's what, again, this group has done fantastically well in their travels, that we couldn't quite get the grips of because it was tough. So it must have been very interesting for them to see, and then given them an idea of what's things to come.
Yeah. So when I was there and I was thinking about the players when in the meantime they played, say we should do the same when we play in Canada. And now they are doing, no? They go to play in Edmonton. So why play in Toronto with 20 degrees against you know, El Salvador or in Vancouver? Let's do the same. Let's play in the north, -10.
Yukon.
Yeah.
We've been saying that for years though, and finally they're doing it.
Good.
Because for friendlies it's okay, but when you play in qualified, let them suffer.
That's an interesting
it's a different
point.
world.
Yeah, because for so many years, right, guys? I mean, we faced that kind of situation that Antonio was describing, and you were describing down in Belize and Dominica, about pitch conditions and heat, humidity, rain, you name it, right? I mean, you're always facing those kinds of environmental conditions, let alone the opponent. And it wasn't really until this most recent qualifying campaign that we actually took a page out of their book and say, hey, you know, come up and play us in minus 20-degree weather. Why? Because it's to our advantage, right? And I think that's something that so many other teams in CONCACAF have used to their advantage against, well, not only Canada, obviously, but against many other opponents. So it's refreshing to kind of see Canada step up and take that, take that initiative and say, look, these are the dates. We can be accustomed to the weather conditions. Obviously, our opponent, if they're coming from Central America or the Caribbean, won't be. So it's something to our advantage. It's
the first time I realized the problem for in that matter was when we play in Panama. We play in Panama. It was a friendly, but the stadium was
no such thing.
Huh?
No such thing.
No such thing as a friendly.
Not in Panama.
Yeah, of course, for us, every single match was like official, right? But the stadium was almost full, and it was 0-0. I remember, if I'm correct. I think Issey was there also, right? You came to Panama also, yeah. And I remember that it was too hot. It was at night, but it was too hot, and I remember the players complaining because the jersey was too heavy. You remember it?
Oh yeah.
That the Umbro one. You remember the red one?
Yeah, it was just stuck to us.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And then in that moment when we went to the hotel, my dad said, "What do you think?" I said, "That now I understand what happened in Honduras 2 years ago." Yeah. Because you can have 30 or 40 minutes bad that the other team is smashing you because we are not ready for that. So we have to prepare really well this kind of matches. Probably, I don't know if we can make the camp earlier or something like that, or do more camps here, right? But I can imagine what the players suffer when they lost A1. It's a storm. It's a storm.
You can't prepare for things like that, especially with the national team, right? I mean, if you only have 4 or 5 days, everybody flying in at different times, and from your domestic clubs, you can only get less than a week. So how much can you prepare? You just gotta change all tactics when the weather condition is like so extreme.
Yeah.
So I'm glad Canada's finally doing it. We've talked about it for so many years.
And we play in Panama at night, and also against El Salvador also at night. But when we went to Honduras, poof, I was so hot.
It's the middle of the day.
2 p.m.
Yeah.
2 p.m.
Yeah.
But was it? I can't remember which. I don't know if it was Cuba. When we went there, they decided to play at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know if that was with you guys.
That was before.
That was before.
Yeah, that was.
So other countries decide to play at at these ridiculous hours when it's the hottest, and because they know we're just gonna die in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. So hard.
Well, since you're speaking about that, I wanted to bring in the question that we got from one of the viewers, Aryan Marwaha, and thank you for the question. He says, "Hi everyone, and nice to be part of this seminar with such highly respected individuals. I was wondering what some of the most difficult moments in your I imagine you saying in your playing career were, and how did you overcome those moments?" And he says both on and off the field. So I'm just wondering, since you're talking about those, particular games, trips to the Caribbean, to Central America, facing those conditions, facing the hostilities, what were some of the moments that stick out to your minds? Maybe
I think for me, the hardest one that everybody still to this day talks about is that trip to I think Martinique. Because it's only a 20-minute flight, and but the planes were not working, so we had to take a boat that happened to be like 6-8 hours, and the waves are pretty big, and the big boat that we were supposed to get on wasn't working either. So we had to take a fishing boat, and this is all the staff, all the players. Hey, were you there on that trip?
No.
But you know the trip.
I heard about it. Yeah,
right?
it's before. It was before me. Yeah.
Yeah.
you
So
remember
this is
Eddie?
like,
No, go.
so there's no food prior to this either, and we can only find like peanuts and almonds. So everybody's eating peanuts and almonds, and everybody apart from me and Dero, everybody just threw up after the first couple hours, and the whole trip was just so brutal, and nobody slept. But me and Dero went down to the bottom of the boat because but if the boat moves like this, there's no movement down here, so that's where we were sleeping on the bags. So me and Dero were completely fine, but when we both came up, everybody just like this yak everywhere on the floor and over the sides and people's shirts. It was just so disgusting. So yeah, was this before you, Eddie?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I think my brother was there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the travel with the national team back then was just the worst ever, and I think everybody still talks about it to this day, saying that was the worst one. Because it was just a 20-minute flight, and I don't know what was wrong, but we couldn't get on the plane, and we couldn't take the big boat. I had to take a fishing boat. It stank as well. I remember national team going for a game, and we played the next day too. So
That reminds me the bus in Dominica. Do you remember, Eddie?
Oh yeah.
We had to
Small
cross
bus,
the
no?
entire, yeah, small, really, it's like a van, man. And
Yeah,
we
I remember.
crossing the whole island
Yeah.
in a small road, up and down.
You had to cross the
Yeah.
entire island in a
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
bus.
There were mini buses. There were
Mini
like 3
buses.
mini buses. Yeah. No, I think from that era, Alf, it's a great question. I think on the field, possibly for me for playing for Canada would be the 8-1, would be Honduras, the trip to Honduras. I think one of the hardest things I've had to deal with as a player, both for the national team and just myself as a player. It was a really difficult time, so that it was we had another crack at it with Benito and Antonio, and it was unfortunate then as well. So had to end in Honduras, I believe, again. But yeah, and then obviously you have, I think what comes, and Issey will know this as well, with the career that we have and spanning such a long time, the injuries that come with it. Unfortunately, the one that probably finished me off was the ending, the one that was off the field. Nothing actually happened on the field. So I think dealing with those, but everyone has their own sort of problems to deal with on and off the field. So it's all different, and it's just how you get back up and dust yourself off, really. And everyone goes through these issues. So no, it's a good question.
Yeah. For me, I still remember that time when you guys lost. I remember being in Cyprus. I was injured or whatever, I can't remember. And I think it was hard because the group that we had, we were all very close, and because our problem was that we don't have a vast majority amount of players, so it was 70-80% of the guys we had this group that was getting regular call-ups. So yeah, it was hard for me too, and I can't even imagine what you guys went through just being in that game. Yeah, but I think it's a great question. The hardest thing I think for me is I think being traded from I think it's still, I hold bitter, like this whole thing of me getting traded from Toronto. I was doing well in Toronto and then get traded to Montreal where I didn't want to go. And I have friends in Toronto, but MLS is structured this way that they just tell you to go because they want that other player and they want you, and you have no choice but to go. And I just came from Europe at the time, so I have never heard of this whole trading system. It's a dual. Well, yeah, you just have to agree if it's in Europe, but you basically get no say as a player. So that was for me the hardest thing, to be told just to pick up and go, and part of this team anymore. And we also were about to be in the final for the cup final, and I just scored the winning goal for the cup final. Semifinal for Toronto, but now I'm cup tied, so I can't even play the final. So, and this is like the third time it's happened to me regarding me not being able to play a final. So this one even just hit me harder. Like, what is this? Is this some sort of curse? And it's the second time that I scored the winner, but I can't play the final. So you end up yeah, kind of cheering against your teammates, and then with this new team, and in the end we won it. So I was kind of celebrating extra hard with the Montreal guys. But yeah, it was I think that was hard for me.
I remember that day, Issey, and I remember how outspoken you were.
I said too much. I ended up kicking myself out of the league.
But you had every right. You had every reason to, to be upset with that. And I'm sure a lot of players before and a lot of players after you have felt the same, because it's not something. It's specific to North America, right? I mean, it's not really something that is generally done in Europe and in other parts of the world where there's a transfer market and so on, and clubs.
And how many guys end up getting transferred, and the European guys end up just packing up and leaving? So the club on the receiving end just loses 2 players, basically. Sorry, loses a player. But yeah, how often does it happen? I still remember one of the Spanish guys I was with in Toronto saying, "Oh, I say this sucks, man. I can't believe you're leaving. If it happens to me, I think I would pick up and go." And it actually happened to him 2-3 months later, and he did pick up and go. He didn't want to go to Dallas or wherever it was. But do they still do this? Of course, right? They're still of course, yes. Nothing's changed.
It's still a big part of the way players are moved through the league. I mean, there are obviously other mechanisms in place now, but it's still fairly common, and as well as in the CPL, right, David? I wanted to maybe just jump back into the national team program for the Gold Cup, because the Gold Cup was played in the summer of 2015, in between the 2 World Cup qualifying series, and the opponents were Costa Rica, Jamaica, and El Salvador. And I think, David, you were mentioning a little while ago that the team had a streak of not having been scored upon that lasted quite a few games during that year, and actually led into the Gold Cup. And I can tell you, because I looked it up, 567 minutes of was the length of the clean sheet streak that you put together from January to July, and it was broken by the late goal from Jamaica. Right. Yeah. Tell us about that Gold Cup experience, and being able to hold, both Costa Rica and El Salvador to scoreless draws, and then losing out to Jamaica on that stoppage time goal.
You know what? I think leading into that Gold Cup, I think we felt as a group the closest we've been togetherness. I think there was a group of older players, younger players, and everything in between, and we had a good setup, and we were confident going into it. And we knew, again, we would be tough to break down. I think it would be scoring our goals would have been our problem, and it previously been a problem. And we had a young Kyle Larin coming in. Crazy saying that now, that the amount of goals he's gone on to score. But I remember he played in that El Salvador game and had. I remember he gets around the goalkeeper 20 yards out, and he's got an opportunity. He blazes one over the bar, and you're just thinking he's going to get one because he's getting in the right positions, and it just never came. And I think had we scored in that first game, it would have been a completely different Gold Cup, because I believe the second game was against Jamaica with that late goal, and that was by far the hottest game I've ever played in my entire life. That was 2-3 o'clock in July in Houston. Yeah, so that was the hottest I've ever played in, and it was a slow, pedantic game. And then they caught us on the break at the end with a cross and a late runner coming in. It was unfortunate. Then you come home and you play your first game ever in the Gold Cup on home soil against a good Costa Rican team, and families there. It's in the rain, and you just needed a goal. It could have been a 1-1 draw. As it turned out, it could have been anything. You just needed a goal to get us through. So you end up leaving the tournament, not through the group stages, not scoring a goal, conceding one, and not overly, you're extremely disappointed, but you're looking at it going, we didn't deserve it. right? Did we deserve to go and win all the games? Maybe not, but we didn't deserve to go out. I didn't believe in what was a difficult group. And I know personally, I really wanted to do well in that Gold Cup. It was something that I really wanted to achieve with the national team. And it turns out I never really got an opportunity after that. So, but it was something that you learn from tournament football, and you take it into the future with you. But I just remember being, I don't know, Antonio, you can maybe speak on that. I just remember it wasn't a bad tournament but the way the results went, we just needed that one goal.
Yeah, I remember to watch the matches because I was coaching the Panam team in that moment. I wasn't in the Gold Cup. But yeah, I remember we deserved to win against El Salvador. Kyle missed clear chance. We have another couple really, really close to score. Salvador make just few. No, I mean, we were better than them. Jamaica, they were better than us because the physical condition was, they were more powerful, you know, and obviously, as you said, the weather was too hot, and if I don't remember bad, you warm up in the sun, which I think was
crazy.
Crazy. So yeah, but we were unlucky in the last moment. But honestly, I don't think we deserve against Jamaica to win. I think they were better.
No.
But against Costa Rica, I was in the stadium with all the players from the Panam team, and yeah, I think we were a little bit better than Costa Rica. We tried to win the game. Costa Rica, they need a tie to qualify, and they play for a tie. And I remember Andrew missing in the last call, like a clear chance at the end.
Clear chance.
We were unlucky in the tournament, honestly. I think we deserved to qualify for sure.
It was a classic 0-0, as they say, Alf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the stadium too that day, and I can remember the frustration in not being able to get the result there. But I mean, it took you back into World Cup qualifying, where we spoke about the 2-game series with Belize, which then propelled you to the 4th round of qualifying, which started later on that year. And in that group stage, you had Honduras as well as El Salvador, right? And you started really well with a win over Honduras and a tie in El Salvador. So in the early games of that group stage, did you feel that you had the momentum from the preliminary round games and that you could ride that momentum through the group stage?
Yeah, I think there was a mix of feelings because when we came from El Salvador, I was thinking we had to win. I mean, from Salvador, we had to win.
And especially the conditions in El Salvador too, because they weren't allowed fans in the stadium at that time.
Yeah.
So if you're ever going to go down to a place like El Salvador and get something, those are the conditions you want.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but I mean, at the beginning of the group stage, we had the feeling that we can be better than El Salvador and Honduras. Obviously, Mexico was in another level. But the feeling was that we had to came with another 3 points from El Salvador. So I think it was like a break, no, in the mentality. But yeah, we had to go to Honduras again, and we'll see. Mexico was really difficult for us, even at home. We tried to prepare. You remember, we make a good analysis from Mexico, talking about how they cross the ball, how they play between the lines, but still, when the team is higher level than your team, is very difficult. But still, I remember that in that match we had chances to score to Mexico. But as Eddie said before, when you don't score and the other team is growing in the match, as the World Cup, no, in the World Cup we couldn't score, and after it changed everything, but we didn't score. And Mexico, step by step, was growing in the match, and at the end, they scored 3 goals, so very difficult for us. And in El Salvador I think we'd make a good game. We at the end of the match, I think they were more tired than we were. and we deserve the 3 points. But still, I mean, 4 points from 6 was a good start. From 6.
Yeah, the following 2 games were against Mexico, as you mentioned, Antonio. We lost both. The first one was in Vancouver, and then in Mexico was in Mexico City, I think.
Yeah.
And I know that Kenny had to step in for Milan, who got hurt in Mexico. So Kenny had to finish out that game. The I guess the final stage of that grouping was the reverse fixtures with El Salvador and Honduras. Just before that, there was a camp in, if I remember, in Austria, and you played a couple of European teams, kind of a lesser rated European teams, Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan, yeah.
What as you left that camp and came into the final 2 qualifying matches, what was the mood in the camp? Was there generally a positive feeling going into the final 2 games that you might be able to get the points and the results that you needed to move to the Hex?
Eric?
I think, yeah, there was, but I think deep down, if we were being completely honest with ourselves, Honduras of the past always hung over us. So I think you're going down there in the last game, and as a group, we never really exercised those demons, right? As the national team has proven on to go and do now. But I think that kind of hung over us, and you've got a chance against El Salvador, but you've got to go to Honduras. And I think that was, you go to Honduras, you go 1-0 up through Manjakar, a set piece in that heat. And I think we blew a bit of energy celebrating because it was just such a relief scoring that goal. And then that was another hot one, very, very hot one. And they get one right before halftime, gets the crowd going. And once the crowd's going there, it's always going to be a difficult second half. I think we held them to 2-1. So, and even then, I don't think we deserve to lose that game. And then we come back, and it's an uphill battle because all the permutations with goals and things like, yes, you're technically not out, but there's a game in Honduras and Mexico where Mexico doesn't really need to play for anything and blah, blah, blah. You just can only handle your business, and we go out and beat El Salvador. So we did what we had to do, but the damage had already been done. And I think if you did, Antonio, you trace it back to probably El Salvador away and not getting a point at Honduras away. But the ifs and buts, it's a difficult place to go no matter what. And I played center midfield in that day. So I was extra running in that heat.
Well, I remember in the locker room, plenty of ice and the machines for the cooling hands. It was terrible. I think FIFA, in this case CONCACAF, they must not allow to play in that time. I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's dangerous also for the health of the players. But I mean, it's not an excuse, but it's too hard for the players. That time, the humidity, 40 degrees, the sun, many things. But still, we went back to Vancouver. We beat El Salvador with 1 player less in I think the last 20 minutes or something like that. We beat them, but Mexico didn't score. So we just need a goal from Mexico, and we were through to the hexagonal. But it doesn't happen, and that's the end of the story, unfortunately.
Yes, that was the end of the story. Unfortunately, another unfortunate elimination from moving on to the Hex, and that culminated Benito's and your stay with the Canadian national team. It was a period of 30 games over 3 years, and quite a number of players. I don't remember the total number of players that came in and out of camps, but I know you all mentioned the fact that there were a lot of young players that, and Antonio, you were I'm sure very close to working with these young players that were eventually moved up to the senior national team. And under Benito, players like Kyle Larin, David, you pointed out, Sam Adakubi, Stephen Vittoria, players who now form the core of the current team, kind of found their way under your father and under yourself during that period of time. What do you recall about how those players became integrated initially, and what are your impressions since we're getting up to the hour mark? What are your impressions of the current team and their successful qualification to Qatar?
Oh, I mean, first, I think the national teams in everywhere is about generation of players, right? So in everywhere, for example, in Spain, we had a good generation 10 years ago, and we won everything, also because of coaching, right? But I think in a national team, the generation of players is the most important content, right? Also, you have to use them correctly, as in this case, John and his staff are doing, because they are doing an amazing, almost perfect job. They were leading the group stage and everything, so it's amazing the job they're doing. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that the things are going well, because some of the players we found them in somehow, right? Like Larin or other players. Thanks to other people like Bobby, because they have a great academy, and they were close to me every week. Please come and check my team, blah blah blah. Because for me in that moment was the weekends were boring, right? Our players, they were playing in Europe, some of them in MLS, like Issey, when they came to play in Issey TOS, some of them they came to play TFC or Montreal. For us was good because I have something to watch in my town, right? In this case, in Toronto. But other than that, my weekends was going to watch League One, college, university, something like that. And after in Monday, I watched by the platform we use, Instant Scout, watching the players, what they did in the team. So yeah, thanks to many people there in Canada with academies or contacts, come and watch this player, come and watch the other one. So we try to find players. And I have a nice story that I went to watch a League One match, TFC against another team. I don't remember the name of the team. And in that team was Chris Manella, Mobabuli, some special players, in the moment, potential players for Canada. But in the other team was another guy. Never know. Nobody knows who was him. But the guy was doing really well. So I told my dad, we had to call this guy, but I said, we cannot call a guy who never was in the program with the U20s or U18. And I said, yeah, but he's a special guy. So I went like 4 or 5 matches to watch the guy, and I asked for the video, and we called him for a friendly camp. He was Raheem Edwards. So now Raheem is playing started left back in Galaxy.
Los Angeles, yeah.
Yeah, so that means that in Canada, we have a lot of players. What they need is good competition, right? I mean, we have the coaches, because today the coaches are good. I mean, in everywhere. They come to Europe to learn, or they come from South America. We have coaches with a lot of quality to manage a team and to develop players. That's not a problem. The problem is the competition. And Canada, in that moment, they don't have competition, right? So for us was a pain in the ass, right? Like, we have not matches to watch, because also in MLS, in that moment, TFC, Montreal, or Whitecaps, they had only a couple players from Canada. And in the rest of the MLS, another couple players, because in US, they are foreigners. They are not domestic. So how many players, how many clubs they want to sign Canadian players? They don't do it. So for me, CPL was a great news. It was late for us, but for the countries, it's very important to have the CPL. Very important, because it's like a garden, I think that a player is like a plant or a flower, and the coaches, we are the gardeners, right? And the garden is the competition. You have to water the players every weekend with a good competition. And now Canada has the competition. It's helping a lot the national team. improving the level of the team. And but beside that, obviously the John is his staff is doing really well. I mean, it's almost perfect. The fast, they play really fast because the players are fast also. They have like Alfonso Davids, Buchanan, Jonathan David, now Stacky organizing. Osorio is much better player than 7 years ago. He's scoring now with TSC, he's scoring with the national team, shooting. So many players, because there are many players below, right? Mm-hmm. So they are growing up, pushing all of them, and the competition level is higher. So it's amazing now, the situation for Canada is. I'm really happy with that.
And David, I'm interested in your remarks too, as a coach now and a former player, having played, potentially with a number of these young players who make up the core of that team right now. What did you expect that they would be able to achieve this in 2022?
You know what? At the time they come in, they might be at different clubs here or there. It might not be their best camp. They're young. They're in and out, but you see players who have quality, and that's the main thing that Benito and Antonio did, is they went out and found players from, as you say, under a rock, where it doesn't matter. If you're good enough, you had an opportunity, and I think that's what the country needed. And we had a bigger player pool to choose from, and then these players have now been able to develop through the national team, or whether it be CPL, MLS teams when they weren't foreigners, or abroad. They've gone abroad to do the thing. So yeah, from my point of view, you can see what it's done to the sheer volume of players we can choose from now, with the quality and the quality of that core group have gone on to, because they were exposed to those environments at a younger age. I think those international competitions, Benito and Antonio weren't scared to play players, so they were exposed to that environment that's standing them in good stead for what they do now. And obviously John and his staff have done fantastic in harnessing what they had there. So it's just gone from strength to strength. So it's unbelievable to see.
I wanted to just find out if John wants to step back in. If we want to wrap up, we're a few minutes over the hour, but I will kind of wrap up by just referring back to John Herdman and Antonio, specifically for you, because John, during the period of time that you and your father were running the men's program, John was obviously having success with the women's program. They won the 2 bronze medals, and they also played in the women's World Cup. They hosted the Women's World Cup in 2015. What were your interactions with John within the program, and how did you feel did you feel that he would be able to take the achievements that that he drew from the women's team back onto the men's team and have success so quickly?
Honestly, we were totally separated, right? I mean, the men team from the women team, we have no relation at all. They were based in Vancouver. I remember the women, they were working as a club, as a team. They had more training camps, longer training camps, and they were in Vancouver. We were based in Toronto because CSA decision, but makes sense because Toronto we have they have more population and more players to scout. So we had no relation. My dad had some meeting with him, but I never told me about what they talked. But when the Pan Games, I had a chance to meet John. He was very kind with me. The women's side, the women were in the same building than we were, and with the staff and John, everything was fine. But I never expected that he made the transition to the men team, but not because I don't think a profile from the women's side is not favorable to the men's side. It's because right when we left, they signed another coach. They signed Octavio. So I never expected that. So if they don't do that now when we left, so I didn't expect they're gonna do later, right? But yeah, I mean, that was the greatest decision from the CSA ever, probably. And yeah, good for him, good for the national team, good for the country, good for everyone. I don't know. I heard here that Ancelotti in the future or something like that. No, there was a new like probably Canada. It was my. We see because to do better than John is gonna be impossible, right? No, never impossible, but really difficult.
It will be difficult to match, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the first qualification since 1986, and Tony Waiters in that group. But thank you. I noticed that John has joined us, so thank you all very much for joining me today. It was a special treat for me to talk to all of you and reflect on some of your memories and a chance to kind of discuss the current team, who we should remind everyone that they will be playing a couple of friendlies coming up this week. The first one is Friday against Qatar. And if I could, John, a shameless plug, it is available on One Soccer, your home for Canadian soccer, and I think it kicks off at 1 o'clock. So those people that are still viewing us, make sure that you watch this new national team that has qualified for Qatar.
I wanted to go. I was supposed to go to watch the match against Uruguay, but I had to cancel because my job. So I was a little bit sad because I wanted to meet some from friends there. But
right, because
next time.
They're both being played in Central Europe, right? So
they play in Bratislava, and we have direct flight is 1 hour and a half from Valencia. So
right,
it's a good chance to visit some players and some friends, but next time will be.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Alf, for hosting. Thanks, David and Issey, for joining on representing the players. And Antonio, appreciate you all your efforts to get this group together. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we'll see you again in Toronto. We'll go for some Greek food again, like we did that one time. And,
yeah.
And hopefully we're all going to enjoy watching Canada. In fact, Alf will be hosting another Behind the Bench in November, on November 9th, with the CSA Canada Soccer President, Nick Bontis, just prior to the World Cup. And that should be interesting because we'll hopefully have solved whatever problems there are there with the players, and Canada will be ready to take on the world. And I'll certainly be cheering for them. So again, everyone, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you very
Thank you,
much.
Issey. Thank you, Eddie. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Antonio. Bye-bye.
Wow.